Hi everyone, and welcome back to Bevy Creative. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to achieve flow in the specific context of work. If you want to learn more about the theory behind the state of flow and the psychology behind the state, you can always check out my other video on flow, which I'll link in the description below. A very quick recap if you're not familiar with the state of flow. So flow is a state of consciousness where time is no longer a factor, so it either goes very, very fast or very, very slowly, but you're not focused on time and you're not focused on yourself either. You're just completely tuned into the present moment. People often experience this state of flow or optimal experience when they're doing something that they really love or that they're intrinsically motivated to do. Usually this comes in a form of a hobby like running or surfing or skateboarding, or maybe painting, making a clay pot, gardening. It can be anything that really, for you, it's easy to abandon yourself in the present moment. Although this is not the case for everyone, being at work or doing work-related tasks is not necessarily the best to be getting into the state of flow. However, getting into the state of flow at work and while doing work-related tasks is really important because it can increase your feeling of vigor and energy, and it reduces the likelihood that you're going to experience burnout. Being in the state of flow is also really good for creativity because you have all this mental space to think of new and interesting things. And so finding flow at work, entering that optimal experience is very important. So how can flow happen at work? How is that even possible? There are a few things in the workplace that can stop you from entering the flow state. One of them is feeling like you have a lack of autonomy or control over what you're doing in a given day. Autonomy, or feeling like you have control over things that you do, that you have control over your goals, is really important for flow because it increases intrinsic motivation. It's this motivation to keep your attention on a particular task for an extended period of time. Without autonomy, it's very difficult to find this intrinsic motivation. So how do we solve this problem? The first step is to understand where you're lacking autonomy at work. Which projects or which tasks do you wish you would have more control over? Which goals would you like to set for yourself at work that maybe are not necessarily heard or understood well by your supervisor or by your employees? Is there something going on right now that's making you uncomfortable or hesitant in having more of a voice in either meetings or in choosing your tasks for work or in setting goals? Is there something stopping you from collaborating or seeking support from your colleagues and from your supervisors? Because having support from your colleagues and your supervisors or managers is a really important resource that you can maybe tap into a little bit more in order to feel like you have more autonomy over your work and in order to eventually get into the flow state. And finally, are there really small things, really small little mini tasks within your bigger tasks or goals that you have more control over, but maybe that you're not really noticing or that you're overlooking? Are there things that you can change in your work environment or in your work process that might make you feel like there's a bit more of your personality in the work that you're doing? A second problem that might block flow at work is not enjoying the task that you're doing. This might then lead to a lack of passion and again a lack of intrinsic motivation. So that might lead to apathy or to boredom. And again, a disengagement from the present moment because you don't really want to be here. You're not passionate about it. You're not really interested in what you're doing. Some of the questions that you can start to ask yourself in order to overcome this barrier is, would your workplace be open to you working different hours that are more in line with your own rhythm? I know that for me, in the mornings is my most creative time. So it's very important for me to start my day with some tasks and activities that really tap into my creative flow. And later on in the afternoon, I like to do more routine tasks. So what's your flow? When are you most able to tap into this creative process of yours? When are you more likely to sustain your attention on a task for a long time? That might be in the morning, afternoon, or in the evening. So depending on what that is for you, you could ask your work, am I able to do the task that you are more likely to get into flow for in times of the day where you are most creative, where you are most attentive so that you're more likely to get into flow and to reap the benefits of this flow state? Is your workplace also open to giving you some time to explore problems that you're curious about and that might not necessarily be related to anything that you're doing at work right now, but that could eventually pull back into work, that could inspire some of your other work goals and work tasks? What are those projects? What are the things that you're curious about? And how could you frame that to a supervisor and a manager to get them to be on board with you? Sometimes just having a few of those tasks that we're passionate about in a day is enough to fuel the rest of our day. It's enough to give us that little boost in motivation to do things that might be a little bit more tedious or that maybe we're not passionate about. Because let's be honest, that's also the reality of work and life in general. We don't have to be passionate about everything that we do, but what's important is that we feel like in some pockets of the day we are able to do things that we feel we are in control of and that we are intrinsically interested in and that we can actually get into flow for. A third barrier to getting into flow at work might be that the tasks that you're being asked to do are a little bit too challenging for the skills that you perceive to have. So maybe you're feeling a little bit on the edge about doing those tasks, or you're feeling nervous about performing because you don't really know how you're going to meet the demands of the task. Or the task might be a little bit too boring for you and too easy, so you're just coasting through it and you're feeling a lack of engagement. Another really important resource at work is the ability or the opportunity to grow your skills and your self-confidence through either training or development or coaching by your supervisors and managers, or even a skills exchange with your other colleagues. A first step in overcoming this barrier to flow is then to ask your workplace, what are the opportunities for professional development? How can I grow my skills? Maybe taking a course at a college or a university might be exactly what you need. Or maybe interning or shadowing someone that's in a position that you eventually want to get to might be another amazing opportunity. Or maybe being mentored by your supervisor, having this open dialogue and this open communication about your needs and about how you feel and about where you're lacking maybe a little bit of confidence or some skills in a certain project that they're asking you to do might give you just enough scaffolding to feel like you can be confident enough and perceive your skills as high enough to meet higher challenges. And when you rise up to meet these challenges, you are absolutely more likely to get into the flow state. It's also important to ask yourself if the goals of the tasks that you're being asked to do are clear enough. If they're not clear enough and you're confused, you are very unlikely to get into the flow state. And so maybe you are perceiving the challenges as too high for your skills to meet them, just because you don't really know what you're supposed to do. And once that's clarified, then you're on your way. You know exactly what to do and you can completely enter the flow state. Finally, one of the last biggest barriers to entering the flow state at work is the work environment itself. Is your workplace very distracting? Are you able to maybe get noise canceling headphones? Is that allowed for you to wear at work? Are you able to turn off notifications and screens if you're doing a specific task? Because for flow, it's very important that your intention is completely focused on the task at hand. And if you're being distracted by noises, smells, different lightings, and constant emails from colleagues, then it's very unlikely that you'll get into flow. I brought up a lot of questions for you to think about here, and maybe more questions than you actually have answers to right now. That's okay. The whole point of this video is to make you aware of some of the things that might be lacking in your work environment and in your workflow that are actually creating barriers for you to get into the state of flow. As you can see, I'm poking you a little bit to be more introspective, to ask yourself these questions so that you can feel like you have solutions to change your work environment, that you can open up communications with other colleagues and supervisors. Important things to remember in this video are common barriers to flow at work include a lack of autonomy, doing work that you don't enjoy, being given tasks that are too challenging or that you perceive as too challenging or not challenging enough, and your physical work environment that is is either too distracting or not stimulating enough. Some important work resources that you can tap into to overcome these barriers to flow are seeking support from your supervisors, so asking to be in a coaching or a mentoring relationship with them, forging strong relationships with your work colleagues so that you can have this strong support system at work, gaining more control and autonomy over the tasks that you're doing or over the time of day that you're doing work-related tasks. It's okay to want to be clear about the tasks that you're doing. Why are you doing this task? What is the purpose? What's the goal? What behaviors or actions are required of me? And finally, seeking constructive criticism so that you feel like you know which actions are producing the best results or are reaching the goals that you're trying to reach. So get your pens and paper out and get ready to do some introspection. I hope that this video was helpful for you, and keep an eye out for other videos on how to get into the flow state in other areas of your life. Have a great day, everyone. Bye. I need glasses. Barrier is what is